Okay, training 18 is get a promotion. Do it. Just go get a promotion now. Make more money. If you don't know me, I'm Meredith Hawley. I am a lawyer, power dynamics facilitator, and best-selling author, and I help employees stop sexual harassment without quitting their jobs. And so a lot of times when people feel stuck in toxic work environments, they can also feel stuck in low-level positions. They can feel like their salary is not fair, like they're getting passed over for promotions. We see this pretty commonly related. And what we also often see is people who are socialized as women are less likely to apply for jobs that they don't believe that they're qualified for, right? They're less likely than people socialized as men to try to apply for something that they feel unqualified for. And so the people socialized as men tend to get more of that. There's some dispute about the actual numbers of that, but often, and we do see men also not applying for things they don't feel qualified for. But interestingly, what the research shows is that women are, like people socialized as women, are more likely to say that they didn't apply for the thing that they're not qualified for because they're afraid to fail. So I was talking to this sort of HR manager in this business this one time, and she was saying that when they hire, they tell the people that are applying the salary bands of the position. And what she's seen consistently is that many women, when they say the salary that they wanted, wouldn't say the highest level of the band, but men consistently would. And she was like, I don't understand why you wouldn't just say the highest amount when you're applying. Why would you lowball yourself ahead of time? And I just thought this was such a fascinating thing, because I just hadn't had that in my history, in my employment history. I had not had that experience where there was a salary band, but I could see how in the past I would have thought, no, if you aim too high, then they won't hire you at all or something. But of course you aim to the highest amount in a negotiation. And then I had this other conversation with somebody, one of my clients, and it was a man, and he was talking, there was this issue in the case where he was saying that somebody who was not qualified for a position got hired for it over him. But he hadn't applied for the position, or I think the issue was really more just that this unqualified person had gotten hired, and there was a whole bunch of other things. Anyway, so the opposing counsel in the case said, well, he didn't apply for this position, so if he wanted it, he needed to apply for it. So I went to him and I said, okay, why didn't you apply for this? And he said, well, I wasn't qualified for it. And I was like, you are the only man I have ever heard say that. And he said, oh, I forgot to tell you, I'm trans. I was socialized as a woman. So it was this funny experience to me where I was like, that's the power of what we teach kids, right? So we don't go for, people socialized as women are more likely to report that they're not going for a promotion, that they're not applying for something that they don't feel qualified for because they're not willing to fail. And I even had this conversation with my neighbor the other day about this. She was saying that she's applying for jobs, but then when she ever gets a rejection from an application, then she has to take a couple weeks before she can apply again. So it's really slowing her down because it feels like such a major rejection from her. So if you feel like this, you're totally normal. I mean, this is, so many people feel like this, women and men. And actually, the problem is that if we are not consistently failing, we're really not challenging ourselves hard enough, right? So I have this rule that if we're not failing 5 times a month, then we're not challenging ourselves enough. And having this rule that you're supposed to fail 5 times every month shifts your perspective on what you should apply for and what you should try to do. And so you're definitely not going to get a promotion if you don't try to get it, right? If you do try and you're determined to be unqualified for it, then you at least tried. And the worst thing that's going to happen if you try and if you fail is that you feel a feeling. But most of us who are not trying ahead of time, who are failing ahead of time by not trying, are feeling a worse feeling than the feeling that we would feel if we failed, right? So if you fail and you have your own back about failing, you might experience a negative emotion. But if you're spending all the time ahead of time feeling fear and not taking action, self-shaming and not taking action, then you're already feeling feelings that are harder than the feeling that you're going to feel if you fail. So when I'm talking about failing, I'm not talking about not trying. Not trying is failing ahead of time, right? Not trying isn't the kind of fail that you want to count. So what I like to do is make a list of 100 actions that I need to take towards a goal that I want, and then plan on 90 of them not working. And 10 of them will work though. And so I can put the 90 that didn't work on my list of fails that I'm trying to get to know that I'm challenging myself. So what I want to talk to you guys about though, when you're doing this process is, like, first you have to plan on failing in order to get a promotion, in order to move up in your job. Like, plan ahead of time that you're supposed to fail. And then what you want to do as a practical matter, this is what I've done to be successful about it, is you want to actually create, like, this is, you want to create basically a fact-finding memo about what your qualifications are and are not, right? And so what I see happen is, I have this happen with a lot of friends. They say, well, I'm not qualified for this position. And then if I look at the position, I actually say, well, you have this experience and that experience and this training and that like, why are you choosing to believe that you're not qualified? And they're choosing to believe that they're not qualified because they're indulging in drama about it, because they're indulging in a self critical pattern, not because they're looking at facts. So you want to know the facts, the actual facts of qualifications, and the facts of your experience and your qualifications, the facts of the qualifications of the position that you're applying for, that's the promotion, and the facts of the qualifications that you have. And then you want to double check those with an outside person and not just let your own brain run what you think your qualifications are, because somebody else is going to be willing to tell you you have more qualifications than you think you do. And characterize it in a way that, you know, that works, that that applies what they see as your qualification. Like somebody that you know, right? Don't go up to a stranger, but somebody who knows you, who knows your work. Confirm with them what your qualifications are. So and then what you want to do is you want to look at comparators. So when I was doing this, when I was sort of, I use this process to get a number of raises in my old job and to double my promotions quite often. I mean, my promotions, my bonuses, quite often. And so what I would do is I would make a memo that was a factual analysis of the value that I brought to the company, that actually reflected the revenue of the company that I saw and how I impacted that. So that's a factual analysis, right? Qualifications are another component of that. Years of experience, all of these factors that employers take into consideration for what you're contributing or in what you have the potential to contribute to a work environment and to a position that you might be wanting to go for. And then what I did was I took comparators. So I looked at people who are comparators to me. So for me, it was other attorneys in around the same years of experience. And you can look on Glassdoor and you can look on PayScale. There are a number of websites that will tell you the typical qualifications that standardized positions are expecting. And you can also look at other companies and other places where there are people in these positions, and then do a sort of fact analysis of what these people's qualifications are. Usually when you do that, you find that there are way less experienced people than you in way higher positions than you, right? You see CEOs with 10th grade education. You see, I don't know, like people who run $1 million businesses with no certifications and no experience. And I'm not saying go like don't be outside of integrity about what you can do, and don't be dishonest about what your qualifications are. But when you look at comparators, you will often find people who are more experienced than you and way less experienced than you. And this is, again, a math thing. It pops your brain out of the expectation that you're the only person in the world that's just not qualified, which is always not true, right? So you commit to failing at least 5 times a month, and this means that you start taking action towards more promotions. And I talk to a lot of people who are like, no, I just need one more certification before I apply for that position, and they're not even willing to talk to their bosses about what would be valuable to the boss and what the boss sees as a qualification, because they're not willing to fail. And they're not willing to have the boss say, that's not something we're going to do right now. This is not the proposal that's going to work, right? But if you plan on failing 5 times a month, then you're going to figure out the proposal that does work at some point, right? And, you know, do it smart, like actually try, actually put yourself out there, actually go for positions that you want, go for promotions that you want, and take care of yourself when the fails do happen, right? Have your own back when the fails do happen. But when we are fully showing up and fully challenging ourselves, even when other people don't like it, right? It's still creating something valuable in the world and something valuable for you. So what you want to do, just to recap, is you want to plan to fail at least 5 times a month as you go for different promotions, as you go for different positions that are higher than yours. And then you want to know the facts of your qualifications, the facts of the expected qualifications, and then double check the facts of your qualifications and your experience with somebody who's more objective than you. You want to know the math, and you want to be honest about the math. I was doing a mock interview the other day, and with like a law student, and I asked her a question about her qualifications, and she didn't have the experience. And so instead of just saying that she didn't have the experience, she somehow it ended up that she was saying that she had, like, basically the story was about kittens dying, and she was trying to apply this story about kittens dying to the experience she didn't have, and it didn't work, right? There's this other sort of like legendary story in my community about a person who applied for a job at the courthouse, and he said, the person who was interviewing him said, you know, we get people here who have, this is their worst day of their life. This is a horrible experience for them. They're having the worst experience of their life ever. And they're people of all socioeconomic classes, just a range of people. How are you gonna, like, do you have experience dealing with people in that situation? And the person said, well, I went to public school for a year, so I think so. And so that's an example of feeling like you need to say you have qualifications that you don't have. So you want to treat that part as math, right? Because it's just as possible to say, You know, I don't have past experience in that, and that's why I'm so excited to get this promotion, because I really, really want to develop that experience. If you need me to develop it ahead of time, what would your advice be about that, right? This is why I'm excited to challenge myself in this position. I always learn when I'm in a position where I don't know, where I haven't learned the thing yet. You don't have to pretend you have qualifications you don't have, but also don't pretend that you're underqualified when you actually are qualified. And go for positions where you know that you're not qualified, to challenge yourself, to let these fails happen, to find out where you do need to grow to get into those positions. All right, you guys, if you know anybody who is feeling like they're not making fair pay at work, like they're being underpaid and they're getting passed over for promotions, send them to us. If you have any questions about workplace culture, also send them over. I want to make sure that these trainings are hitting people's questions. And I really appreciate you watching.